Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is Coffee, Books, and Bullet Journals. I make book and lifestyle related content Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Today I'm going to wrap up the first half of my reading year. Okay, so behind me, I have changed my shelf. These are all of the physical books that I have read so far in 2021. I'm gonna have to do this in a different location for the end of the year. But yeah, here it is. This isn't everything, because anything that was done with an ebook or a audiobook that I didn't own the physical copy of, I don't have up here. So that being said, this isn't all 61, but I have read 61 books in the first 6 months of the year, which is cutting it really close to the 125 books that I want to have read by the end of the year. So I'm gonna need to pick up the pace. I knew that 125 was gonna be a stretch goal, but I think I can still do it. So we'll see. I'm coming out of a reading slump, so I feel good. I feel like we can do this. But constantly, Goodreads is like, you're behind on your Goodreads goal. So, that's depressing. But I want to talk about some books that I've read. Now, these numbers might be a little bit off because they also, for some reason, add in the DNFs, and then also some of my July books that I've already finished are on here. So, that being said, let's talk about some stats. Like I said, 61 books. I'm excited about that. That comes out to a total page count of 19,938. So I'm again a little bit behind because I mean, the nice goal would have been 50,000. We all know that's not going to happen. But 40,000 would be a great way to put a little chair on top of this year that has been not so great. I had 2 months that were that are tied for the highest month, and that was February and June, both coming in at 13 books, and then April being my lowest reading month at 6 books. Surprisingly, this is an interesting graph. I'm going to put it up here. 46% of my books have been audio. That makes sense. I actually thought it would be higher. I actually thought it would be above 50%. So that's exciting that over 50% of the books that I read this year have been with my eyeballs, which is a different, it's a change from past years, I think. 35% have been physical, and then 19% have been ebook. Another interesting statistic, over 50% has been adult book. I did kind of see a trend for most months, not every month. February and June both had a lot of YA books, but other months have had a lot of adult books. So coming in second was 31.7% was YA. So middle grade definitely in trailing behind the rest of them. Over 60% of the books have been either a debut author or an author that's new to me. I've only read 36.5% of books from authors that I have already read before. So that's a really cool statistic. And then my genres, this one isn't too surprising, but the big chunk of the pie has been contemporary. I've been reading a lot more contemporary this year. Don't know why, but I have. A lot of romance, things like that. Most of those romance books, the contemporary was the subgenre. Fantasy is only sitting at about 14%. So that's, again, weird. And then 11%, a little over 11% has been sci-fi. A lot of that has been because of the Avengers, and a lot of our group books have been sci-fi, or a lot of the prompts kind of lend themselves to sci-fi books. I have already given out 15 5-star books this year, so 15 of the 61 books that I read, which is exciting, with the second highest being 4 stars. So I've had pretty good luck in my reading this year, which is exciting. Okay, I was going to try to take the books down, which is why they've kind of moved around. I was going to try to take them down and try to pick out my favorites, but I'm not going to do that because should have thought about that when I was putting these up, but that's not happening. Of the 15 5-star books, I want to talk about some of my favorites and some standout books of what I read this year. I'm not going to count any rereads. I did a lot of rereading this year. I want to say it's 10 rereads so far. I can't remember the exact number, but there's been a lot, which kind of might equate to some of those 5-star reads, although not every reread was a 5-star read. But let's talk about some of my favorite books. Arguably my favorite book of the year so far has been One Less Stop by Casey McQuiston. I guess this one's on top. I could do that one. Here we go. So One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is the sophomore novel from the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is a sapphic love story, and it's also a wonderful book about New York and the subway and 2020 and COVID. It was a very, very interesting book, and it has a little bit of time travel in it. Is this a perfect book? No. There is definitely some valid criticism for it, but I felt really seen by it. And Jane and August have my entire heart. They are precious souls, and I love them so much. But this is about a girl who meets another girl on a subway, finds out she's stuck in time on the subway, and it's this, like, rescue mission. And it's just, like, it's this found family. It's New Girl, if New Girl was gay. If you've watched that TV show and you've read this book, like, you will totally understand that and get that. And I loved this book. I read it so quickly, and it's probably one that I'll read again, not gonna lie. Another standout of mine was Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. This was a YA contemporary romance that I absolutely fell in love with, and a lot of that is because of the commentary on bisexuals and whether or not that you are actually queer, and if you are valid, and if you are welcome in the queer community based on who you are currently in a relationship with. This is a straight passing relationship with a boy and a girl, but the girl is bisexual, and she questions a lot of that throughout the book about whether or not she's queer because she is attracted to a boy at the time. That's such an important thing that we need to be talking about in today's society. There is a lot of bi erasure and people saying that you are not gay if you are in a straight passing relationship, and that's absolutely false, but it's a really, really damaging rhetoric. And so it was really nice to see a YA book really dive into that and have that commentary. And I feel like kids are really going to resonate with this, and I really, really love that book. Another favorite of mine was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. Angie Thomas is one of those auto-buy authors for me. I read this book very early on in the year, and it's still definitely stuck with me. This is the prequel to The Hate U Give, and it follows Maverick, Star's father, as he grows up and becomes a man. And this was really, really good. Angie Thomas can pretty much do no wrong. I loved this book so much. Maverick is such a sweet character, and I loved him in The Hate U Give, and so seeing him get his own story was just so powerful and so beautiful. And it was really cool to see some of the characters in The Hate U Give that you know and love as, like, much younger versions of themselves, and, you know, kids being born that are teenagers in The Hate U Give, and that was just really cool. Like, it's definitely one that, like, I would recommend you read The Hate U Give and then go back and read Concrete Rose, because you'll get a lot of little Easter eggs that aren't, like, vital. You can read Concrete Rose on your own, but it's really cool to just, like, see the little Easter eggs that Angie Thomas put in there. Another favorite of mine has been The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is the first book that I read by Matt Haig, and I loved this book so much. This has a very unlikable main character. She's just, like, very lost and, like, has no idea where she's going, no idea what she's doing in her life, and she tries to unalive herself, we'll say that, and then she ends up in this library with hundreds of thousands of millions of books, and they're just all on the shelf, and they're basically alternate versions of her life. And so we get to see all of these different alternate versions of her life, whether or not, like, you know, based on different decisions that she made. We see her as an Olympic swimmer. We see her as this public speaker. We see her as this scientist. And, like, it's all over the globe. Like, you can see all these different things. And she goes into each life and basically, like, tries to see, like, what decisions could have completely altered her timeline. And it's one of those books that you kind of reflect on your own life and your own decisions that you made as you're reading it. It's definitely a book that makes you think. It's not a long book, and it's powerful. It packs a punch, and I'm really excited to read more of Matt Haig in the future. While this was not a 5-star book, Legendborn by Tracy Deonn was an outstanding debut that we read. It was January's group book for the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge, which was which is the reading challenge that I host and run. And this, like, we kicked it off with a bang. This was so good, so well done, so much social commentary in a fantasy. There was just so much talk about racism and classism. It's an Arthurian retelling, and the author did such an amazing job flipping the story on its head. And who you thought was like the Merlin and the Guinevere, like who you thought they were not. So that's exciting. And it's definitely a book that I am dying to get the second book for. Like, there's nothing on NetGalley. There's nothing. I need this book so bad. It's fine. Okay. Anyone in publishing want to, like, send me an ARC? And the last one that I want to talk about is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the third book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, I guess. And it follows Eve, who is the youngest sister. I love the Brown Sisters so much that I created an entire readathon for them, the Talia-a-thon. That is one of my, like, little pet projects that I've been doing recently. And this was the first book that I read in 2021. I actually got the ARC for this, like, back in October, I think, of 2020. And I could have just, like, immediately read it. But the past 2 years that I've been on BookTube, maybe even 3 years, the first book that I read of the year was just, like, mediocre at best. And I didn't want that for 2021 because 2020 was, like, a terrible year and I needed something better. So I saved this so that I could read it on New Year's Day, and I did. I, like, jumped off on, like, a 24-hour readathon and read this book in, like, one sitting, maybe 2 sittings. So good. I'm rereading it now and I'm loving it a second time. Eve is just a hot mess and I love her. There's a lot of conversation about autism and Eve finding out that she's autistic, and it's definitely a self-discovery. It's an Own Voices book and I love that. My channel has definitely seen some fluctuation, as it were, in the past year or the past 6 months. I feel like I've stagnated a little bit and I'm really trying to kind of get out of that little, like, quicksand hole thing that I'm in right now, trying to come up with new and innovative content. Of course, the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge has been a big project of mine, as well as the rest of the other hosts. Love that readathon. It's been so much fun. Definitely a lot of work, more work than we thought it was going to be, but it's been really cool to, like, kind of stretch our creative thinking a little bit and really try to play into the fact that, like, MCU tends to be, in, like, sci-fi in general, but specifically comics, tend to be, like, a boys' club. And the fact that there are no men running this, like, that's fantastic. I'm really happy about that. The fact that, like, you know, we have a place in this universe, and it's been a lot of fun. But I've also done some really interesting content on my channel that I'm really proud of. I started doing secret TBR vlogs that were themed. I did one based on the White House. I did one based on ballet. I did one on chefs or someone, like, involved in a restaurant or a kitchen. That one was probably my favorite of them, just because of what I do for a living. I work in food, and so that was fun. Although it's much harder to find good books about cooks and chefs because a lot of authors are not. And so sometimes it's a little bit hard to, like, get it right. For me, like, most people wouldn't notice things, but I do. BookTube Veda has also become a big thing. We're about to start round 3 of that, and it's kind of grown into a whole different thing than me just saying that I wanted to do 31 videos in the month of August. So that's been fun. We've been doing we've done live shows for it. We've done game nights. There's a whole, like, little community around it now. My thumbnails, I think, have had a little bit of a glow up in the last 6 months or the last year. I've kind of definitely found my style that I really like. And then I've also done some non-bookish related content, which is going to continue as I grow in this channel. We brought home Shotzi. That was fun. And then also I did a Pride lookbook, and I kind of related it back to books, but I kind of wanted to branch out into this, like, you know, little bit of fashion YouTube. Not really, because I'm terrible at it. But I do want to show different parts of my personality and different things that are going on in my life and different things that I'm interested in. I am very excited about how the last 6 months have gone, both in my reading and also with the way that my channel is going, and I'm really excited about how the next 6 months will go. So if you want to stick around for that journey and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video, and all of the other links to my social media will be in the description below if you'd like to be my friend on any other platform. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.
What makes this heart beat faster?